Hello everyone, we hope you are having a fantastic day. Today we're going to be talking about something a bit interesting. This is something that can apply for anyone of any Korean skill level, and that is the skill of making longer sentences in Korean. Of course, there are many ways that we can make our sentences longer in Korean, but for this video we're going to focus on one way we can make them longer. This video will be split into two parts, a breakdown of the main issues and then ways to overcome these issues. Let's start with the issues themselves. There are four main issues. Firstly, the issue of language transfer. This is where we make mistakes speaking in another language by trying to apply rules and knowledge from our native language. The second issue is attempting to focus on words that are too complex that may not be frequently used. The third issue is not being aware of big differences between our native language and Korean. The fourth and final issue is learning the meaning of the words well, but not knowing how to apply them to sentences and situations. For this video, we are specifically going to be talking about nouns, and specifically relative clauses. If you already know what relative clauses are, we still recommend watching this next part, as different grammar books can have slightly different interpretations, and we want to make sure we all have the same viewpoint for the explanation. We have another video regarding relative clauses, and this will be linked in the video. Let's start off with the English sentences. Try to find out what the subject and verb are and what kind of things describe the subject. As you can see, there are several things that can come before and after the subject, which is gases. These things add information about the subject. And in the second example, several things come before and after the subject, girl. These things also add information about this subject. Understanding this is really important. If you still have trouble understanding, we recommend watching our video on relative clauses. So, let's think. Why could Korean learners find this difficult to use to make their sentences longer? A big reason is the difference in how relative clauses are used in English and in Korean. In Korean, 파란색 옷을 입은 내 교실 안에 있는 사랑스러운 사람. In English, the lovable girl in a classroom who wears blue clothes. What's the main difference here? The order of the words. In both cases, the noun 사람, person, is the most important thing in the clause, since this is the thing we are giving more information about. In English, this usually goes first. In Korean, this usually goes last. This generally applies to both cultures as a whole. We see this in dates, 2020년 8월 15일, 15th of August 2020. Time, 오후 5시 30분. 5:30 p.m. Names, Kim Junsu, Junsu Kim. And addresses, 서울특별시 강남구 강남동 강남아파트 352. Apartment 352, Gangnam Apartment, Gangnam, Gangnam District, Seoul. Because this generally applies to culture, the difficulty of making long sentences comes from the fact that English speakers are used to putting this important information for the noun first. When switching to Korean, this is reversed. In Korean, all the background information comes first and then the important information. How can we get better at making long sentences then? The simple answer is exposure. The more you expose yourself to the Korean language and culture, the more you'll see these types of sentences, and the more comfortable you will become in using sentences in this way. And if you keep exposing yourself to the Korean language, it'll make it easier to change towards the Korean type of thinking. The Korean type of thinking focuses on putting all the background information first. This is found not just in this grammar, but in a lot of other grammatical principles. It's good to take the time to analyze sentences and get used to identifying adjectives and nouns to help increase this exposure. When studying vocabulary, it's good to focus on common structures and phrases that are used with those words. And finally, when you learn new words and grammar, try to challenge yourself to see if you can use them to make your sentences longer. So, what did we cover today? Today, we looked at the grammar of relative clauses in both English and Korean. We learned that a lot of different things can add information about the noun and that clauses are one of these things. We then looked at how cultural differences can make this difficult for Korean learners. And then finally, we learned that exposure can help make this easier. You've probably heard it a lot before, but this is part of what it means to think in the Korean way when we speak in Korean. It really does help you sound more natural. We hope this video was enjoyable and informative for you. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. 감사합니다.